Facebook. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Funke Afolabi Brown. I am so excited to be here with one of my favorite people, and it's Dr. Tolulope Olabintan. I know I will not do justice to her bio, but I'll just kind of just start off and then, Dr. O, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. But then Dr. Tolulope Olabintan is a board certified family physician, and she's the founder of Livingspring Medical in Mansfield, Texas, and she'll tell us more about it. And what her passion is really helping people to live long and live well. And when I heard that, I'm like, okay, that's it, because that's what I want. And that's been my message for folks out there. How do we live long and live well using sleep as a superpower? So this all ties in so nicely. And this session we're having it's just perfect right now, because this is a season where a lot of us are probably reflecting on our health. A lot of us are reflecting on goals. A lot of us are like, okay, what are things I need to shed, like literally and figuratively, for 2023? And what are habits I need to pick up? And how do we build sustainable habits? So welcome to Candid Conversations. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. O. I'm just going to let you just introduce yourself, because I know I literally, I'm sorry, in fact.
You did very well. And thank you so much for having me. This is fun. I'm honored to be here. And as you said, I'm Dr. Tolulope Olabintan, CEO, founder of Livingspring Family Medical Center in Mansfield, Texas. And yes, we help patients live long and well, because we believe the quality of life is just as important as the quantity of life. I'll sum it up with this story real quick. I had a patient one time, and he was a little frustrated with his diagnosis and the medications. And on one occasion, he looked at me, Dr. Funke, and said, what's with you? Why do you care? We're all going to die someday. And I'm like, there's a way to die. And it doesn't have to be, in the hospital bed, with these chronic conditions. Like, you can actually live a long and productive and relatively healthy life if you make some decisions sooner than later. And so I painted a picture of what was possible. And that has been the whole idea, what's possible, what's possible at 80 years, at 90 years of age, and how do I get there? Because I want to enjoy the things that matter most to me. I want to retire. I want to spend time with loved ones. I want to travel to places. To do that, you got to live long and well. So that's one of the stories that really sealed that phrase for me. And I'm looking forward to having these conversations with our viewers today.
Absolutely. I love that. Just what is possible with our health, right? I love the fact that you said, like, yes, of course, we're all going to die someday, but how we die also matters. How we exit. Do we want to exit where you're like, please? Or do you want to say, okay, I've lived fully, I've lived well, it's time to go, right? And so there are things that we could do along the way that helps, make that decision. So I just really, really love how that resonates so well with me. And so one thing you also say is that you really provide an emphasis on lifestyle changes to help people thrive, right? And we were saying just before we hit live about the fact that this thrive matter, right? Everybody says, oh, survive, don't just survive, but thrive. We talk a lot about thriving. What does it mean, when you're talking to your patients, your clients, about thriving? What does that really mean to you?
So thrive by definition means to grow vigorously, or to grow well, to prosper. Now, sometimes in conversation with patients, I say, I don't want you to just endure life. Like, you're like, oh gosh, I'm getting old, but enjoy life. And so one of the things I try to encourage patients to know that no matter what the diagnosis is, what the life condition is, there's a way to actually live an improved quality of life. So it's not just enduring, oh, another year's coming. It's, okay, what can I do to improve my functioning? And so that's why conversations start with, what's important to you? Well, I want to be able to chase my grandkids, or I want to be able to travel continents. Well, to do that, heart's good, limbs are good. We don't want you to be at risk for blood clots, and different things for different individuals. And so it's, what can we do to make where you're at better now? And so the first thing I encourage our viewers or patients to do is to see it as possible. That's the first thing. I want you to see that it's possible to live a better quality of life. It may take more effort from you. You have to work more in partnership with your physician, with your therapies, with whatever team it takes to get you living optimally. That's what we're advocating for. But the first step is saying, you know what, this is possible. I can thrive. Even with this diagnosis, I can thrive. I can live better. I can enjoy a better quality of life, even with this. So it's possible. So first, you got to sell them on that idea first, and then go from there.
Yeah. So it sounds like we're back to mindset.
Yes, that's it. Key, man.
It's back to it, because whatever it is we're doing, when we can't figure out our why, it's our why that sustains us when things get uncomfortable, right? Because we're not saying these are like, it's just a walk in the park, it'll be perfect. There'll be challenges along the way on your health journey. There'll be times when you're like, oh, please, I don't even like the taste of kale. But then it's important to keep the why in view. So I love how we're going right back again to mindset. And I say the same when it comes to our sleep. Like, why do you want to feel better when you wake up in the morning? Like, why is sleep important? It's not just about checking a box, like I did it, but like, what is your goal? Because then when you feel like it's time to eat that large bowl of like carbs just before bed, you're like, this is probably not going to help my sleep quality. And I want to sleep well because I want to live well and live long. Then you probably swap it for maybe a stick of string cheese, something, So I love that. I love that. So now let's dig deep. Why is it hard to build sustainable habits, right? Again, before we hit live, I was talking about the fact that most times we're in this time, right? This season of reflecting, and there's guilt sometimes, there's some motivation, there's like, some regrets, there's some like, I didn't achieve my goals, and whatever those goals are. Usually most people have some form of health goals. And so for some reason, I may not have been able to achieve it. Why is it? And meanwhile, like the beginning of the year, we had all these aspirations about what we were going to do, but we didn't attain it. Why is it so hard to sustain these habits?
I'll be honest with you. I think it starts with how we're kind of naturally wired. There's a natural tendency for you to want to do something that gives you instant gratification. Like you do it, oh, it feels good. You eat that ice cream, oh, it hits your taste buds. There's a center of your brain that's triggered that say, oh, reward centers activated. And you're like, man, this is good. I can live here forever. But it's instant versus the delayed gratification, right? Well, when you exercise, you don't exactly feel like going to, hippity-doo, no, but over time, you see that your strength is better. You see that you're able to sleep better. You see that you're less depressed. You see that you have more energy for the things that matter most to you. So it's the way we're wired, as infancy, as a child, they want what feels good now. And we kind of grow with that. And so I think, that's one of the challenges is how we're wired. So we have to almost like rewire and retrain ourselves to adjust to, you may not feel that great feeling right then and there, but long-term, and you've experienced it before to know that this is something that you should do. Now, another thing, why is it challenging? Because it's a challenge, hard things, we think it's hard, so I don't want to do it. But, we've done a lot of hard things. I pull the legs of some of my patients sometimes where they're like, oh, doc, it's hard. I'm like, you already doing hard things. You decided this morning that, you felt like just walking around naked, but you decided if you stepped out of the house naked, you end up in a psych hospital. So you made a decision. I got to shower, got to brush my teeth, got to put on clothes, got to iron them, make sure I look presentable. That was hard, but you've normalized it. So with everything else over time, you can normalize these hard things. So it's a challenge. It's hard because it's hard. We can do hard things. So that's a switch to that. And then sometimes we're not sold on the benefits of some of these habits. So we're not sure, like, why would I exercise? The people who are exercising don't look like me. It sounds like it would hurt. Or we don't have a support system to help coach us through those helpful habits. So everyone needs a community. They say it takes a child it takes a whole village to raise a child. Well, it takes a whole village too to keep that child growing through adulthood and everything else. It's just, we become a little more self-reliant than a child, but we still need those support systems. So sometimes the issue is also poor support systems, poor systems in place to remind us of why. We know we're going to work because we need to get paid. So we know our why. That's glaring us in the front. But to also enjoy all those things we're working hard for, we need to be reminded. And I would say sometimes we get into feelings. Don't feel good. It was everything we did that we felt good about. There are a lot of things we wouldn't do. And so sometimes that's a struggle too. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that is so good. So I'm hearing, yes, it is hard. And so sometimes we don't feel like doing hard things, but if we normalize hard and if we build in systems where it's like, yeah, it's just what I do, that makes it more sustainable. And then the talk about that tendency to like look for sort of that short-term gain versus the long-term benefits. So really look into the long haul because we feel like, well, it doesn't seem to be working. Like I don't have my six pack and I went to the gym twice already, right? And you just want to quit. And then also, like you said, is that, we get into feelings. Yes. Oh, I'm just not feeling it. And I think that sometimes even has to do with, like, it might be your personality. You may be someone who's a bit more, oh, please, let's just chill, right? Like there's sometimes, that would be beneficial in some situations. But when it comes to building sustainable, healthy habits, we probably need a little more motivation. Yes. And so I think this is a perfect segue. Where do we go from here? How do we then build, or no, maybe the question I would ask first is the reason why I think what we can do, like you said, normalize had, then I think the habits piece comes in. Like, how do we build in habits that, just like you said, you take a bath in the morning, hopefully you brush your teeth every morning. How do we make this like, yeah, it's just what I do? How do we build those habits, and why is it important to sort of almost like automate the system? What would be the benefits of that? And then how do we go about doing it?
Now, before I answer that question, I wanted to say this too as one of the biggest challenges. We give up too easy on ourselves. So it's new year. Everyone's like, "Ooh, I'm going to do all these things," and then by the second week, third week, if you've not done it, then you give up. Well, the next day is just as valid. It's a new day. So New Year is just a new day in a different year. So I'm not saying New Year's not a big deal. It is. It's just every day is a gift, and so we need to be very careful not to give up so easy. So, how can we set up those habits? So I think we talked about it a little bit. One is knowing why it's important to, and some of these may sound a little woo-woo, like, okay, that sounds too up there and psychedelic. But it's very important to almost convince your mind that this is important. And so I'm going to make it a priority. You make room for what's a priority for you. And the truth is, and this is something that has liberated me, and this is something we talked about off camera too, where I have to own up to the fact that I can't have time for everything. I cannot. And so things need to shift. And depending on the season you're in, some things need to take a higher, more attention versus others, but you got to make it a priority. So for you, you want to prioritize your sleep time, you want to prioritize exercise, movement, period, movement. Don't put for exercise, just movement. You want to prioritize movement. And so one, you want to make it a priority. Number two, I would say batch. As much of batching as you can do. Batching and pairing. So I'll say batch and pair. So batch, by that I mean that you maybe tie it to, like for instance, eating healthy, meal prepping. Don't make a meal every day. Sunday, get little goodie bags, put carrot sticks, celery sticks, raisins, things that you can grab and go, and buy little small pouches of fruits that you can grab and go. So you already have it as a batch for the week, right? I teach my kids this: get your clothes ready 5 days at a time. So that way you're ready for the week. You don't have to do it every day. So you're set. So it saves you time in the long run. Yes, it's time consuming at the time you're doing it, but it helps in the long run. Then with the pairing. So we talked about how we want the instant gratification. We prefer that naturally versus the delayed gratification. So if you can pair it, so let's say you're on a treadmill and you're watching TV, you're watching a show that excites you, or you're listening to music, you get that instant gratification for 10, the high, yeah, I like this, my jam, but you're also exercising. So you're pairing something that's pleasant with something that you consider not pleasant, but also helpful. Then other things, number three, I would say is friendly reminders. I can't tell you, how much having an accountability system is. And I don't want someone who's watching who says, well, good for you. You sound like an extrovert. You have a lot of friends. Well, I don't. It could be a video, a YouTube video. There are people on there. Those are your accountability partners. You can have an alert on your phone that says, let's move, or your watch, time to move, time to get up and take those steps. So those are other things that can also encourage you in your habit forming. And, remind yourself, I can do hard things. As you start to see yourself change and feel better, you see that it's worth it. And so, sometimes patients will come and they're like, doc, my blood pressure is better. And I'm like, but wait 1 second. How do you feel? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, since you started these habits over the last 3 weeks, because they say it takes about 21 days to form a new habit. What have you felt? Okay, fine. I sleep better. I have more energy. I'm like, there you have it. There you have it. That's your why, because it's worth it for you. So those are things that, we can, and if you can pay for a coach, if you can pay for someone to keep you accountable, please, you're worth it. Do it.
This is all so good. So even starting with what you said, the batching and pairing, I think that is such an effective strategy, because that's something that, a lot of my clients say, like, I don't have time. I just don't have time for sleep. Like, I want to, but like the time actually does not exist. And like you mentioned at the beginning, there's no time to do everything. Let's just bust that myth. There is not enough time to do everything, but there actually is enough time to do what matters. And it may take some creativity. It may take, like you said, batching and pairing. I love that. Like, that's one of the things I recommend, especially when you're like, well, I have to wake up at a certain time, right? I have to wake up at 5:30 or 5 a.m. or something and rush out the door. Well, maybe there are things that we can move from that morning to the evening, and we kind of make that part of while the family is winding down, like you said, preparing for lunch the next day, making sure everything is packed and you're just grabbing and going, getting the clothes out. Like, I think that's just such an effective way to sort of save time and get things done and build these habits just as a lifestyle. So I love each and every one of this.
And don't forget, one of the things that I think that helps also with sleep, as far as habit forming, we have systems in place to help keep us in check. So your phone, automatically, you can set it to do not disturb at a certain time. So calls don't go through, especially you're getting those spam calls or like, unnecessary alerts. So you can have that shut down before, a certain time. It helps you stay accountable. That's one thing I've had to do.
I love it. That is so true. It's, a lot of the conversations I also have with women is around boundaries, right? That's one boundary you could set in place. Like, I am not accessible to the world after a certain time. Of course, maybe you have a VIP list, like if your family or there's a case of an emergency, there's a way they can reach you. But that in and of itself it's not selfish. It's just creating systems in place that allows you, again, to live, to fulfill those goals that you're looking. And so when we think about why, as we reflect, right, like you said, like next year, 2023 is another date, another 24 hours. So don't feel like the year failed or whatever. Like, as you go in, just think of, okay, we didn't get this done. We have a new opportunity. And every day we get to wake up on earth is a brand new opportunity to do better, right? So I think this is beautiful. So now, as we kind of wind up, can I just say this has been incredible? Like, I hope each and everyone has taken something that you could start to work on. If you say, like, what are, when we talk about setting health goals, what are just some like practical goals or habits that we can just kind of pick on, that people can say, okay, now, yes, I'm ready to live well, live long, make 2023 my healthiest year yet? Like, what are some areas that you think we could just start to focus on in terms of when people start to draft those goals?
Okay. So we've known this for years, for decades, for centuries, that exercise is important. All right. So you can prioritize movement. So I'm starting to shift more from exercise, because it sounds like, oh, you ask, well, do you exercise? They're like, no. I'm like, do you move a lot? Oh, yes, I do. I have a 2-year-old at home. Okay, then you exercise. So move and know that you're moving, because knowing that you're moving itself is also therapeutic. Okay, knowing that you're doing things already in the day-to-day that actually make for better health. So one, prioritize movement. And so when you're thinking, okay, today I want to move at least 20 minutes or 30 minutes actively, where I can not sing, but I can talk. That's usually how you measure like how intense it is. And so a 10-minute break here, a 10-minute break at work if you work from home, or having a sit-to-stand desk and a little peddler under your computer, so looking for little ways that you can multitask your exercise in is important, because movement is linked to longevity. Okay, you got to move. Number two, more plants on your plate and in your mouth. So not just on the plate, like in your mouth. And so you're thinking maybe a week at a time, because of course it's fresh fruits or frozen fruits, you have to buy them. So little hacks are things like in the fruit basket in the kitchen and put in different fruits, tangerines. And so people are having conversations around the table and they're eating it. Looking for 3 or 5 to have a day. So the bags, the Ziploc bags, we talked about batching. So prioritizing that. So one of the things I would say that helps me is I have a planner for every week. Yes, I'm that cheesy. I have to have a planner for the week, and I work on it on Sunday, and I'll write out. And there are 5 things that I've got to do. So my daily 5 or sometimes daily 8. And these I've got to do no matter what happens by the end of the day. Sometimes I hit all 8, sometimes 4, sometimes 5, but I'm gracious to myself. I try again next day. So I want to eat fruit. I want to move. I want to meditate. I want to drink more water. There's a certain water goal I have. And I want to spend meaningful time with certain people and things like that. Okay, so having that planner is very important too. And I always reference it throughout the day as a reminder, so I know that I'm trying to hit my goals. So we talked about movement, we talked about plants. I already hinted about water. Water is very, very important. Depending on what medical conditions you have, half your weight in ounces is what's generally recommended. Why? More energy, you preserve your kidneys, it's good for your bladder, it's good for your lungs, it's good for essentially every organ. So that's those are 3. Number 4, sleep. I can't tell you how when I have my patients just sleep consistently, how depression scores go down, how anxiety scores go down, how they're able to focus. And so the worry about ADHD is minimized. So sleep is so much, it's tied to focus. You got to sleep well, your brain actually needs to rest. I know there was a phrase, you sleep when you die. It's not correct. Okay, I used to buy into that too. It is not correct. Let's undo that statement. So sleep, prioritizing it, getting the whole family to kind of sink in, and meeting with Dr. Funk to come up with a strategy on how to do that, because I'm telling you, it can save you a lot of medications and other modalities down the line that can be time consuming. And then mind your mind. Mind your mind. That's a very, very important habit. What thoughts do you allow dance in your mind? What things do you allow influence your mind? There's certain things I wouldn't watch. There's certain things I wouldn't listen to just because of how much draining it is to my peace of mind. And developing healthy habits like meditation. I read my Bible, I pray, I meditate, like think about it and personalize it, because those are important to maintaining my outlook on life. And that's tied to longevity too. So I think we covered about 6. That just sounds good.
Yes, I love this. And you know what I love about this? It is simple. None of this costs thousands of dollars. I mean, literally, you can start today. So we can get past the roadblock. You don't have to wait till January 1st. You can start today with movement. Find time. And I love how again, you're tying that movement. Guess what else you could do? While you're moving, you can listen to something motivational. So you're feeding your mind, right? Isn't that awesome? And right after movement, you're going to be thirsty. So you can make sure that you're getting that hydration going. And guess what? Because you've exercised, you're well hydrated. You're motivated to make those right choices when it comes to eating right, because you're already in that mindset. And guess what comes next? Good sleep. I love yes. And you know what? This has just been incredible. I knew it was going to be good, but like literally, I love this. And I think everyone who takes a listen to this is going to go away with an actionable step they can make to change their lives. And so thank you so much, so much for coming on. And then how can we work with you? Like this entity that is Dr. O, we want more. Like, please tell us.
All right. So you can come, we're still seeing new patients. If you're in the Mansfield, Dallas, Texas area, you can look us up online, www.livingspringmedicals.com. Also on Facebook at Livingspring Medicals. I'm also on YouTube at Livingspring Medicals. Instagram is Dr_Olabintan, Olabintan. And if you Google me, generally speaking, you can kind of find how to connect with me. Thank you for having me, Doc. This was fun.
This was fun. So you guys heard it, just so many ways to connect with Dr. Olabintan. Thank you so much. And for those of you out there who are like, listen, I need to figure out how this sleep issue, because like we said, everything we just talked about ties so much to sleep. I am that person. So follow me on restfulsleepmd.com. Let's work together. You could schedule a free call. And so we could really talk about how do we make sure that your goals align in a way that sleep does not suffer. Because if sleep suffers, I mean, you can only go so far. We don't want that to happen. And so thank you so, so much again. And I hope everyone has an incredible new year. And, keep watching this space. There's so much more coming up. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for having me, and you rock, Doc. You rock.